This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. As I showed in last month's video, you can make beautiful ribbed edges even if you don't have a ribber. And this was last month's video. The swatch shows a knit one, purl one ribbing made with no ribber. Now this month I want to show how you can make a knit two, purl one ribbing with no ribber. And here's the other side of that. Now, why would I choose to do this? This is a nice option if I don't want it to pull in quite as much as knit one, purl one. And it's also a nice option if I don't want to have to do quite as much latching. So, I like to only teach things where I'm completely satisfied with the appearance and I like the looks of the edge on this just fine. I've seen other knit two, purl two, and knit two, purl one edgings that were latched that I didn't like as well. So let's get started. I started by knitting a few rows of waste yarn. I have 2 needles in work and 1 out of work, right on across my swatch. Now I'm going to hand feed some thin nylon ravel cord and do a separator row. The separator row makes it much easier to get the scrap yarn, the scrap knitting, off the machine. The scrap knitting is just acting as a stitch holder. And I am also hanging clothespins on the ends of the ravel cord to make it a little easier to knit the garment yarn through. My main yarn for this little swatch is this lavender yarn, and I thread it in the machine on a tight tension. It's on tension 1. And then I knit across and make sure that it knitted through all the way across. With it being on tension 1, I need to check that. And I knit back. That gives me 2 rows of the swatch yarn. And now I'm going to zoom in and show you what to do to make sure that you have that nice looking finished edge. I am going to have you pick up certain loops from the purple yarn or whatever your swatch yarn is and put them on one of the 2 needles above them. Where you have a group with 2 needles, go down and find this loop on the first row in between those 2 needles. Sometimes they call this a sinker loop because this thing here is acting as a sinker. It shoves the knitting away and makes it knit through. Or you could just think of it as the loop in between those 2 stitches. So get that on your tool and put it on one of the 2 needles just above it. Here's the next one. It's easiest to see if I pull down a little. And I am going in between those 2 ravel cord loops and getting the loop between them and putting it on a needle. To give myself a satisfactory edge, I do this all the way across. I don't worry about these other laddery looking loops, these guys, not a concern right now. Just get these, the ones in between the pairs of needles. And each time, just pop it on one of the needles above. It could be the left or it could be the right. You choose. It'll be fine. So those are all on. And now I'm going to bring out the in-between needles with a needle pusher all the way across. And then I'm going to stop for just a second and think about my tension. I was on a very tight tension, tension 1 for this little step with just the 2 rows, but now I want to be on the ribbing tension. It is a very good idea to always make a swatch of your ribbing before you do a project so you'll know that you're happy with everything about it, including the tensions. So I've gone up to tension 2 and 2 clicks, which is the same tension I used in the 1x1 ribbing swatch. And I'm going to do 7 rows of ribbing. So I'm going to knit 7 rows right now. And now I'm going to latch this up. So I'm getting my weights off of it. and my clothespins. Everybody who's been to one of my seminars knows that I'm a clothespin user. And here's what I have. I have 2 little thready loops and a big hole, and that runs right across. Now I'm going to get in close and show you how to do the latching up. Here I am on the left-hand side, and the ones I'm going to latch up are the ones with the big holes. I'm going to use one of these latch tools. It's like a hook, but it has a latch that opens and closes. And I am going to drop the stitch directly above that big old hole. So that's this stitch right here. And in fact, I'm going to drop every 3rd stitch right across the work. So I bring them out, double check to make sure I brought out the right needles, and then push those needles back. And now the knitting will unravel, and if you just give it a not too gentle tug, unravels like crazy. You can unravel it all at once if you want for this kind of a latched ribbing. Now, here's what we're going to do. On this first row of ladder rungs, put your tool under the bottom of the rungs and then come up under the 3rd rung up and position your tool so that the bottom 2 rungs are in front of the tool and the top rung of those 3 is inside the latch, and then pull down. This gives you this nice finished edge, and then latch the other rungs one by one right on up to the needle above them on the machine. When you get there, you can put that stitch on that needle easily by pushing up the tool enough so that the loop is below the latch, and then just use the tool like a transfer tool and pop that stitch right on there. And then I do the second. I go under, and I'm under 3 ladder rungs, but I pop up so that only the 3rd of the 3 is in my hook, and I pull it down. It comes from behind those other 2 loops, and then I latch up. It is always easier to latch if you go straight back under the next ladder rung. Next one is just like the first 2. I go under those 3. It's easy to go under 3 because the first 2 are little, so they form a little group. But then pop up so that the only one I'm going to grab is this 3rd one, pull it down, and then latch up. And when I was saying it's easier to go straight in and out, it's easier to do that than to do this where you weave in and out. See, that takes a lot more time than just going in and out. If you pull down gently, you've got plenty of room to work. So I'm doing this right on across, and it goes quickly. I only have to latch up every 3rd stitch instead of every 2nd stitch. So that alone speeds me up a bit. And of course, when you practice doing this, you'll speed up. I'm going to do the next couple, and then I'm going to come back and show you the end one. And here I am getting that last one. Often on the end, I will pull a little bit to the right to make it look more like the others looked and make it easier for me to see what to do. My latch is closed, so I'm going in with my latch open, grabbing the 3rd and latching on up like the others. Now typically you knit the ribbing tighter than the rest of the piece, so I've loosened my machine tension up to 5. My ribbing was on 2 and 2 clicks, 1 click smaller than 3. And I'll do some rows of plain knitting now. Just enough for a respectably sized swatch. I'll cut the yarn and drop the swatch. What I want to do next is get this curled up piece of scrap knitting off. And the way to do that is to find the end of the ravel cord on one side and pull on it. Just pull, 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 until it pulls all the way out. So I've yanked it out. I take the scrap yarn right off because that ravel cord was separating the scrap from the keeper knitting. And here's my edge, looking at it from the purl side. You can see that the ribs are a little farther apart because I only latched up every third one. Now here's how it looks on the right side, and I'm just moving it around so you can see this edge is a nice attractive edge that won't unravel. I hope you'll try this. I think you'll be very happy to have this extra technique in your arsenal when you're working on projects without a ribbing attachment. Did you know that you can help me get machine knitting information to more people? Just click on the like and the subscribe links below this video. Thank you so much.